on social media yesterday and nearly made Twitter explode. The great Barry Sanders came in at 1. Following Barry was Walter Payton, Emmitt Smith, Adrian Peterson, and Frank Gore to round out the top 5. So, Shannon, I would love to know your top 5 in terms of all-time running backs.
Well, I got Barry at 1. I got Walter Payton. I got Jim Brown, Emmitt. And Skip, I went back and forth with this one. And the guy that I left off not because of he wasn't great. It's because of what transpired in the early 90s. And I just could not in good conscience put him on my list. But he was unbelievable. And if you're my age, if you're between the ages, I'm 50, I'll be 52 in a month, Skip. If you're between 52 and 60, your favorite running back, there's no question, Skip, was O.J. Simpson. And people don't realize how good he was because he retired, I think, in 79, Skip, and that was 40 plus years ago. And then what transpired was 15 years after, 14, 15 years after that, and then got in some trouble again. But, Skip, people don't realize how good O.J. was. For a 5-year stretch, Skip, he averaged 1,500 rush yards, won the MVP, and was all-pro every year. I went with E.D. because I was very fortunate, Skip, to see 3 of these guys play. You know, I'm old enough I was in the league. Me and Emmitt came in the league together. Barry came in the year before us. E.D. was still in the league when I was in the league. So I saw 3 of these guys play. So my list is Barry, Walter Payton, Jim Brown, Emmitt Smith, and E.D. Barry was special.
No. Not special. I got a big problem with Barry Sanders as your number 1 because Barry Sanders is not in my top 5. Shannon, Barry Sanders had to be taken out on goal line or short yardage plays because he could not run between the tackles. Barry Sanders was often known for plays that went nowhere fast. He often got many of his yards going the wrong way, as in wrong way Sanders, because he would go here and there and here and there and run circles around defenders way deep in the backfield and wind up with a -1 yard gain. And if you look at his playoff run, he did play 6 playoff games. They only won 1 of them, but he averaged in the postseason 64 rush yards a game. That's not number 1 all-time running back to me. And in one of those playoff games against Brett Favre and the Packers at Lambeau, he carried the ball 13 times in that game for a grand total of -1 yards in a playoff game. 13 rushes for -1 yards because he's going nowhere fast. He's going here, there, he's going here, there. He's wrong way Sanders. He was hard to get on the ground, spectacular behind the line of scrimmage, but he didn't go forward enough for me. And if you have to get pulled out on short yardage and goal line because you need a bigger, stronger back end, you're disqualified from being the first overall choice on Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe's list. I cannot abide that. Go, if you want to respond, please do.
Well, Skip, I think the thing is when you average 1,527 rush yards for 10 years, and you said he lost a lot of yards, but he gained a lot of yards. Skip, if you look at it, you look at his offensive lineman, there's nobody, his best offensive lineman, yeah, he had Glover was a center and Lomas Brown, but can you imagine if you put Barry behind that Cowboys offensive line, how many rush yards do you think he would have had, Skip? If you put him behind E.D.'s offensive line, when they ran the football, how many yards you think he would have? Jim Brown had offensive linemen that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He didn't have that. O.J. have offensive linemen that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This guy does not have a lineman that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He did that. And a lot of these guys, the quarterback, and the reason why you look at Walter, because Walter was all they had, Skip. Their quarterback was terrible. Really, until they got Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon, it wasn't like he was, Vince Evans and Bob Avellini. Come on, Skip. So that's
totally agree.
That's who I'm riding with. I'm riding with them.
All right. Now,
who you
back
got?
To my list. I have your number 5 at number 1. And it's not because Eric Dickerson is a friend of mine or a friend of ours, a contributor on Undisputed. I've said this for years. Eric Dickerson was the combination of power and speed I have ever seen at 6'3", 220. He timed 4.28 in the 40. And he's talked about it on Undisputed. We're talking about 4.2-ish speed. I saw it firsthand. I covered him at SMU because I was the columnist of the Dallas Morning News. Ron Meyer called me at home that August that he was a true freshman out of Sealy, Texas. How SMU signed him, I still don't know. That's a documentary for another day. But he was at SMU with Craig James, who was really good. And one day, Ron Meyer called me at home and said, "Are you doing anything this afternoon? Because we're having an afternoon practice. Please come watch this kid from Sealy. He is a man among boys. My seniors cannot tackle him." It was Eric Dickerson, who then went on to that 1 year where he shattered the record of O.J. Simpson that you talked about with 2,105 yards. And went on to, and then in that playoff game, I was right there in the front row of the press box that day in Anaheim, California, when Eric Dickerson ran over my Cowboys, around my Cowboys, through my Cowboys, right down their throats for a playoff record that still stands 248 yards. He led this league in rushing 4 times, has the all-time record, and I'm sorry, that's just true greatness to me. Now, quickly to O.J. I'm with you. I have mixed emotions because we know about the off-field. I don't even want to discuss it or touch it because it's just evil and it's hard for me to process. But if you can remove yourself from that and stay on the field, I am so with you that we can't disqualify the on the field with the off the field. He did it. He was the first to go over 2,000 yards, and he did it in 14 games. He averaged that year in 1973, he averaged 143 yards a game. That still stands as the record for a per-game average for any single season. O.J., and for my eye and for my entertainment value, Shannon, I'm with you. I'm in that era that you're talking about. The most exciting, electrifying back I ever saw, dating to his USC days, where remember what he did to UCLA late in that game? They won 21-20 when O.J. was in his first year at USC, went to San Francisco City College for a couple of years, but he got loose for 64 yards. The juice was loose and beat UCLA. And then he was must-see TV behind what they called the electric company, Reggie McKenzie, and that offensive line. I'm still going to put him second on my list. And we didn't talk about the great Jim Brown. I'm sorry. I'm old enough to have actually gotten to watch him on television. Jim Brown dominated pro football. He played 9 years, and he led the league in rushing 8 times in the 1964 NFL championship game against Baltimore and Don Shula. He ran for 114 against a defense that would just stack to stop him, and they won 27-0. The Browns did. He was, you want to talk about man among boys? It was Jim Brown. So I got him third. I'm going to give Emmett fourth just on